because I never experienced anything like it before. I'm part of the county's response team, emergency response team, and I was actually at Lifebridge Church in Longmont. We were evacuating the whole town of Lyons, Colorado.
It was hard to make a decision right away because we were in the middle of a crisis. But in the end, we did receive $1.8 million to manage a flood recovery grant program. And it was a temporary jobs program for individuals to do humanitarian work or debris removal.
And I get a phone call from the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, said there is an opportunity here. It's called a Disaster National Emergency Grant, and we would like to have you apply for it. And I asked a couple questions, and they responded by saying ultimately it would be a job program where we could hire people for work.
For a temporary worker to be eligible, they had to be long-term unemployed, underemployed, dislocated by the flood, or be a dislocated worker. We
decided we wanted to hire up to 100 people in flood recovery, and basically sent a quick email, said this is the budget I would like to have. I'd like to hire 100 people, $13,000 plus $3,000 for fringe benefits. That'd be $1.5 million, and I need some equipment.
I've worked here for 10 years, and this is the most difficult grant that we have worked with. Everything that we do, every sort of even not a minor decision, but a medium decision that we make has to go up the flagpole to Colorado Department of Labor to get approved. Then I have to approve it, from buying a shovel to approving a work site to getting a van approved, figuring out how to fill the van with gas.
Community, the national community, the federal government, the state community, and the local community came together and said, we are going to respond to a national disaster, and we're going to do it quickly. And it happened very quickly.
We got the funds in the fall of 2013, and our first project started on February 23rd of 2014 at Foothills. At Foothills United Way, Stephanie Walton was our worksite operator. She managed the long-term flood recovery group who provided humanitarian services for the flood survivors who had unmet needs such as they needed medical vouchers, they possibly could have needed restoration work in their home, they could have needed support for their mortgage or their rent if they were dislocated from their home, or they could have also just had any other financial need that was preventing them to go back to their normal state of life.
So the Long-Term Flood Recovery Group is really a multi-agency collaboration with government, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations all coming together to help people recover from a disaster. And in this case, it was the flood in 2013. Foothills United Way opened up a fund where we had multiple individual donors and foundations donate money right after the flood. So they're the fiscal agent of the flood. And then we have a team of disaster case managers, restoration coordinators, and volunteer coordinators who all come together to help people navigate all of those resources and, if necessary, tap into this fund that Foothills United Way is managing.
Our role is to, when we have clients that are assigned to us, to assess their situation and then look for resources that will match their needs, and then advocate for our clients and try to get those resources for them to help restore their situations and get them back to what we're calling the new normal.
I've been involved with the flood since the beginning, doing volunteer work through the Office of Emergency Management. So this position here has afforded me the opportunity to continue that work. This is my chosen career field. I'm a recent graduate with my degree in emergency management. So this is not only giving me an opportunity to serve the community that I live with, but it's also giving me valuable work experience.
The biggest learning curves was learning about what happens after a disaster, learning about FEMA and their process, and learning about the resources that existed in the community to help the clients. I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I had to learn, and you had to do it in such a short time because cases were being handed out, and so I think initially I had a caseload of 20 that I had to figure out how I was going to help these clients.
It's funny how much we think we can sort of relate to people's experiences when we see it on the news and we try to imagine what people are going through and things like that, but sort of being in the trenches and getting to talk to people directly who experienced this very traumatic event, I learned a lot more about what people go through with that, and have sort of developed a lot more compassion around that.
We've had about 5,000 volunteers. The bulk of that was during last summer, where there's a lot of high school and college students that have come through. In addition to that, we work with a lot of the VOAD groups that come through with more of the skilled volunteers.
We had a group of volunteers that were trained, and then I came on as an employee in mid-April, and so I've been working for almost a year doing this, and have greatly enjoyed it.
I'm an advocate. I guess if there was one thing I would consider myself, it would be an advocate, and so that has been one of the biggest things that's helped me in my work here at long-term flood recovery.
I did have a client recently who found that at this point, a year and a half in, she just discovered that there was some mold in her basement that had been unnoticed up until now. And that was frustrating for her because she had to, figure out how to deal with that. And financially, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for her. But that's something that we're working on with her, and trying to get some financial support for that.
The one that stands out the most is an elderly gentleman and his daughter who had been without heat since September of 2013. And it was in October of 2014 that we were able to work on their basement. They needed a furnace replaced, and we were able to get working on the case and take it to the Unmet Needs Committee, where it was funded for about $26,000 for the construction and the replacement of the furnace. And it was pretty amazing because as soon as the heat came on in their house, they cried. And that was, for me, that was an amazing moment.
Well, the mobile home was completely wiped out here in Longmont, and he was able to get his home relocated. And I first tried a FEMA appeal, which was denied, and then I went to our Unmet Needs Committee and got funding to have it repaired. And then I went to the Salvation Army and got his tools replaced because he was an auto mechanic, but his tools were all destroyed, so he had a very low-paying job as a home health aide. And then I went to the American Red Cross and got some money to replace furniture, and then I went to Catholic Charities and got some more funding for additional repairs that were needed on his home. So I pretty much used everything that we have available to us to get him back to a pretty good situation, and he's also a single dad, so it was something that he was very grateful for, and I don't think he could have really figured that out on his own.
I think that the program through the workforce has given, not only the flood-affected residents the opportunity to obtain the help from everyone here, from intakes to case management to volunteer coordination, but it's also given us a great opportunity to work together for the greater good.
I started with all the volunteers, and this is such complex work, and until we had people that could devote time and energy to it full time, as case managers, I don't know how we could have done it, because I was trying to do it as a volunteer, and it's basically overwhelming. And until we could really get a full-time staff on board, we couldn't begin to handle our over 1,000 caseload.
I had completed my 6 months of unemployment, and there weren't going to be extended benefits, so I was in a financial position where I was going to be in real trouble because I hadn't been able to find any work, and I had fulfilled the quota that was required for unemployment. So Workforce was able to give me an opportunity for an interview in a position so that I could, you know, make money. And it did. It saved my bacon, literally. I would have been in dire straits financially if I had not been able to do that. And additionally, I was able to get some experience and learn some new skills, which I think diversified my resume some. And by virtue of the fact that I was currently employed, I think that gave me more opportunities to be interviewed and find work. And then finally I was able to secure a new position, actually as a result of this work with the county.
Resource conservation, the worksite operator is Mark Wesson, and his job was to coordinate the project. He was coordinating a total of 21 employees through three different work crews, and going out to the private properties and meeting with the homeowners and coordinating the execution of the debris removal from each project.
Workforce Boulder County got a grant through the state for some flood debris cleanup, and our division was responsible for a lot of the flood debris cleanup right after the flood. So it fit that we applied for this grant. So we have now 3 crews that we have dispersed throughout unincorporated Boulder County that are doing private property cleanup.
I went to the Boulder County, they have an office, the Workforce Center, and I was in there on the internet, and yeah, just been looking for work, and I found this on Craigslist, and they got me to work in about 2 weeks from the email I sent, so I was pretty happy about that.
Selling cars for 20 years, and I got laid off, and then I got an opportunity to come work out in Boulder County and to help out the victims from the flood.
I was cleaning windows. Yeah, I did that for like 8 years. And then, yeah, he wasn't real busy, so he didn't hire me back. And then I saw this, went for it.
When they made me crew leader, I almost didn't want to take it because it meant I was leaving the guys I've made friends with for the first couple weeks I was working. But it turns out the people they hired for my new crew 3, they're all really great, and we're already becoming friends. This is my 3rd day with them, and it's pretty awesome.
I'm used to sitting behind a desk all day. This is hard work, but at the end of the day, it's rewarding. You know, I did work. I get to help some family out there that needed help, you know, with the property they have, and you know, help them clean up.
Everybody's been really safe. We're getting a lot accomplished at a good, safe pace, you know. So that's the goal. Nobody gets hurt. We're working with some pretty heavy things out here, some machinery and some chainsaws. So, but we're doing well in that department.
One lady was almost in tears, and she was like, gave us all hugs and everything, so it's a good aspect of it as well. One guy came in, was helping, working with us, and he was real happy too, so.
You know, when you're picking up the debris and you're cleaning stuff out and you see a little stuffed animal, you know, and you shake it off and you think about the little kid that used to have that little animal, a little teddy bear. It's kind of depressing, you know, but it's sad, and it just makes you keep going and going and going when you're out here.
Out here at one of the first sites we were up, I think it was 4 Mile Canyon, and there was a 9-year-old woman whose husband died 3 years ago, and she's been up there all by herself and has had no help, and she was crying her eyes out when we were done. The whole place was cleaned up, and it was just really fulfilling, you know.
We've been all over Boulder County, so we're really focusing on the mountain communities right now, trying to beat the weather so before the snow comes in.
It's a family cabin that we've had in our family since like 1913, I believe, and it just destroyed pretty much all the grounds around us and filled the cabin with like 6 inches of mud everywhere.
And we finally got 3 full crews hired on, and they're working out great.
The road was gone, so we hiked up here about 2 weeks after the flood, and just it was amazing to see, you know, how much damage it caused.
They're all super hardworking, and really thankful to have the work and to be helping people out.
As I said, they were very nice, and they cleaned it up very well because it was a lot of carrying and hard work, and I really appreciated it.
For the most part, we're leaving these properties a lot cleaner and looking a lot nicer than they were, and so people are just very happy with the work we're doing.
I do want to tell Boulder County thank you for the opportunity to give me a job, you know, so they helped me out. Now I'm helping somebody else out. You know, it feels good. You know, everybody needs help around here these days. And it's nice to help each other out.
It helped me get me on my feet to like move on, more or less, you know. It was good timing, more or less, is what it was for me. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Boulder County.
So I thank Workforce Boulder County for getting this grant and allowing us to do this, because it's something that I can feel good about at the end of the day.
So for the U.S. Forest Service, Mary Beth was the worksite operator, and she took the crews out into the properties on a daily basis, managed their scope of work, did the safety training, and ensured the completion of all of the projects.
This summer I was assigned a work crew of 10 people from Workforce Boulder County. They were recipients of a grant from the Federal Department of Labor, and we were the beneficiaries of that crew. The crew worked 40 hours a week for about 16 weeks on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forests, the Boulder Ranger district of that forest.
Well, I was in a business venture, and I was helping seniors find places to live when they could no longer live in the home. I did that for almost 2 years and used up all of my retirement and didn't make any money. So I had to close the business up and get back to trying to find another career. And I ran into somebody that works at the Boulder Workforce Center who said you might be eligible for this program, and so I applied, and that's how I ended up here.
At Camp Dick Campground was our first project, bringing fill material back into campsites where the 2013 flood had washed the fill material away.
I'd been previously employed for a number of years with a home improvement store, and then became unemployed. And a friend of mine who had been working with Workforce for resume services and other networking mentioned this to me, and she said, you need to come in right now and sign up for this, so I did.
Well, anytime you lose your primary source of income of 26 years, it's a personal disaster that it kind of mirrors the disaster that is what brought us here to do this work.
I got laid off at the end of the ski season, and then I was just doing job searches and saw an ad on Craigslist, and that I contacted, responded to the ad, and that led me to the Workforce Center in Boulder, the Boulder office, and that's where it started.
I've been working with the Foreign Aid Service in Afghanistan as an advisor to the Afghan government and to the military over there, and due to the funding cuts in Washington, D.C. They laid off a lot of the Foreign Ag Service, and there were 55 of us in Afghanistan, and I was one of the ones who were cut.
From where the people would park, there's a walkway that has bordered edges and would have a very fine fill material in it. During the flood, all of that washed away. So 90 cubic yards, or about 150 tons of fill material we replaced by wheelbarrow and shovel load to bring back in to replace what was lost during the flood. That was most of what we started doing at Camp Dick at the beginning of the season. Toward the end of the season, after we had finished a lot of our flood recovery work that was accessible to us, we switched over into doing a little bit of improvement. At Camp Dick, for example, we were installing some concrete pads to later support some bear food storage lockers that are bear resistant, so to improve the situation for wildlife.
To be able to come to a place like this for the summer provided almost a sense of kind of a relief, or kind of a clearing of your mind. You know, mentally it kind of healed me in a lot of ways.
I needed a break from this other stuff that I've just talked to you about. And I figured, you know what, this will be good. I'll be going back to the old days. I know at the start of the day I'm going to get a good workout, and at the end I will have earned my money. I'll be doing a variety of things, and here's my office up here at Camp Dick.
This has actually been my career goal is a position with the Forest Service. So I was very happy to just get work in general, or have a prospective employment opportunity. And it was just an unbelievable bonus that it happened to be a position working under contract with the United States Forest Service.
Even at this site, people were clamoring just as we finished it, you know, a few sites here, to move right in just as we finished it. It's like, can we move in? And so it was really nice to see that appreciation and that need, that pent-up demand for, you know, recreational sites that they hadn't been able to use and appreciate up to that point.
I'm a crew lead here, and it's so it's definitely different. The challenges are the environment we work in, with everything from rattlesnakes to bears to the flood damaged areas of boulders and rocks and insects and that nature. And then the weather has been a lot of lightning this year.
I tried to approach each project with, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, and here's your part. Here's what I need you to do. And once they knew their part, I stepped back and let them do their work. I trust my crew to do the job that they know how to do.
We were very fortunate with Mary Beth, who headed up the Forest Service piece of this, in that here was this lady who had 10 strange men coming in, and she could work with us and work well with us. Everybody liked working with her. And she always dug right in and did anything we were doing, and it made everyone, I think, perform better because of that. So I only hope that they have this program continued next year for another group of people.
We wound up as a cohesive unit that was able to really take and give things to each other and build some bonds and some friendships that I don't think would not otherwise have been possible.
It's amazing that we're also going to get help after this through Workforce Boulder County. So it's not just that we're given this opportunity and then pushed to the side. It's great that they're gonna continue to help us.
No, just again, thanks for the workforce program and this whole flood project. I know a lot of us will never forget this, the time we've had just being out in the outdoors, doing something beneficial, the feedback from the campers and such, and just being able to appreciate the the joy of the state of Colorado that we've had and trying to get it back to its former glory. And I know some of these people I'll continue to dialogue with in the future and keep tabs on where they're at, and hopefully they'll do the same for me. And knowing that when I come up to these sites and refer people up here, I can say, yeah, you go to this place and you can see what we did, and know that they'll appreciate it.
the Brainerd Lake Recreation Area. We were working on some sign replacement, and I drove up to a trailhead, and the host there told me that they just had a report of a woman with a broken leg at Blue Lake. So I used my radio to contact the sheriff's dispatch and call for help from search and rescue.
We heard the call come in, and our lead, Mary Beth, had mentioned that, you know, since we were close on site, that perhaps people could jump in, and we had already kind of started separating into our groups for the work at hand, and as it turned out, they came up with a good crew of people to send up there.
I was told that the county is going to be giving awards to the 3 of them next month in recognition of their service, which is really great.
These guys were at Brainerd Lake July 9th when a person was injured and rescue workers went in to save them. The person was airlifted from the area. And then as the first responders were hiking out, one of them suffered a terrible heart attack.
We were working up at the Brainerd Lake Recreation Area, and a party came out of the woods off the Blue Lake Trail and reported that there was a woman who had broken her leg.
And rescue workers went in to save them. The person was airlifted from the area. And then as the first responders were hiking out, one of them suffered a terrible heart attack.
And we called dispatch and reported the incident to dispatch, and then they dispatched the Indian Peaks Fire Department and Rocky Mountain Rescue Group up to the Brainerd Lake.
We went up for one rescue, and on the way back down, one of the rescuers had a heart attack. And 3 of us from the work crew went up initially, and we stayed up to have lunch up there, and we were the last ones to leave. So on our way back down, we came across a gentleman who lives right outside the park here.
He wasn't breathing, and he did not have a pulse. So I knew he was in cardiac arrest, and we had to begin CPR.
I've got training as well as Andrew in CPR and first aid, and so we identified what happened right away, and we started CPR on him.
We improvised a mask barrier for the CPR out of a rubber glove that we ripped the fingers off.
We made radio contact with the paramedics that were up initially with us, and they came up, and about 40 minutes into doing CPR, I was on my last compression, I think they called it.
That incident was really early in our employment, so it was amazing how it brought us all together really quick.
So it was difficult because he had to come down, and his wife was down there, so it's very difficult.
And during a very intense and chaotic time, Andrew and Grant and Adrian conducted themselves professionally, providing life-saving services to an unknown person. Their distinguished actions aided the delivery of public safety services, making them well-deserving of this commendation. Thank you, guys.
It was a little, you know, saddening, naturally, especially here when we're trying to, basically on a fun site, you know, happy kind of time, bring things up, recreational area in summer and all the kind of fun stuff that goes along with it, to have this kind of tragedy happen. It just, it really refocused us, kept us focused on the need for safety at all times.
So for Parks and Open Space, Chase Dryden was the worksite operator, and his responsibilities were to manage the 2 crews to go out and work and do fencing, reseeding, any type of restoration work at the county.
last winter I became aware of the possibility of hiring a seasonal crew to help us rehab a lot of our properties. We pursued that, got in communication with Boulder County Workforce, and went from there. The location we viewed earlier is on the north side of Boulder County. It's an agricultural property that we own and lease back to the rancher. The reason why we're out there stems back to last year's flood event. The property sits on the Little Thompson River watershed and sustained significant damage.
We've been all summer doing various projects, mostly building fences. We've had a couple projects where we cleared debris, and we did 3 weeks worth of reseeding.
My involvement started immediately after the flood. I was tasked with surveying all of the damages to our agricultural ground and beyond with GPS mapping flood debris throughout the county.
I lost my home, and then I lost my job because of the flood, and I was out of work for about 6 months. And Boulder County Workforce turned me on to this job. And that's how the whole crew came to work for Boulder County Parks and Open Space.
Before this came along, I was restoring cars for a car collector, and out of the Denver area, and that was for a period of time. And when the economy and the housing boom was definitely falling off, that the employment was falling off too. All of those that were employed at this car collector, we were all looking for work.
I was a purchasing agent at a medical facility in Longmont because of a buyout. They were looking to reduce staff, and I did purchasing, inventory control, warehousing, those type of things.
Well, I've been a custom home builder for over 30 years, and I ran out of work, so I went to Workforce, and they told me about this job, and I thought it might be exciting to do this. It has been.
We have accomplished a lot of work this year. It's been a very valuable tool for us throughout the season, not only in ag resources, but in other divisions of our department. Plant ecology used them for 3 weeks this fall, 3.5 weeks this fall, reseeding native vegetation into flood-scoured areas to help prevent takeover from noxious weeds, rehabilitate habitat, and so it's been good for all of us.
It was a little difficult at first, but then we all found common ground and just, you know, working outside and digging holes, and really I think enjoying the wildlife has brought us all together too.
But being outside has been a plus. It's probably the hardest work I've done in my life. Heat, and the cold, and endurance, but I have dropped some weight and got physically fit as far as I'm concerned.
Well, one that really stood out for me was throwing seeds. I didn't know I was going to be throwing seeds for Boulder County, but you know, building fences was a little better, I think. A lot of barbed wire, and that was pretty exciting.
I think any time a group of people spends every week, all week together, five days a week, you do form those bonds, and it's a pretty close-knit bunch we have, and from the standpoint of productivity, you know, the closer the crew and I became with each other and formed those friendships and working relationships, the more we got done, and it's been good that way.
And so we became proficient through our boss of stringing fence line, which was manual labor. We didn't have a lot of equipment, so all of us were doing manual labor, and we built a lot of fence.
It's been a great season, and thankfully I've been able to have each and every member of my crew on for as long as I have, because without this crew, we would still be at ground zero in terms of accomplishing the immense volume of work that we have had to do.
Well, probably the most exciting thing was the different areas Boulder County owns for open space. They're beautiful, and it's been fun working on them, and it's been real nice working with these guys.
I'm very thankful. This has been one of my favorite summers to do work. I did grocery work before, so being outdoors has been a plus.
I think every one of us is grateful that we had income and it was pleasant work, and our employers were pleasant also.
We have plenty of work to do. As people have been following the flood and the flood recovery now, it's going to take a decade before we really come back to where we were before. And it's been great to be part of it.
I'm very proud of all of the success that has come out of this grant. It's been quite a challenge, and it wasn't easy from the beginning, but with all of the support of other departments, Tom Miller, our director, my supervisor, Aaron Jones, and my teammates, as well as other workforce colleagues, we've now hired up to over 65 temporary workers and made an impact in the community.
I was able to gain new knowledge about disaster recovery work. And I'm also very grateful that, clients have advocates like us to be able to work for them and work with them on their recovery. Because I really believe that without workforce, many of our people wouldn't be in recovery.
Whether there's another disaster, whether there's another economic downturn, or some other jobs program that requires lots of effort and a quick response, we stand ready.
Workforce Boulder County really appreciate the opportunity and getting back to work and receiving some new training and getting to put a resume point that I was a crew leader. It's going to help me out for my next position, whatever I do, for sure. So thanks a lot. Nice talking to you.
Work!